Our top story, General Bipin Rawat, India's first Chief of Defence Staff, and his wife were killed today, along with 11 others, in a military chopper crash in Tamil Nadu. There were 14 people on board, 13 have died, one continues to fight for his life. The only survivor, an Air Force group captain, is being treated for severe burn injuries.
The remains of the Air Force chopper carrying India's first Chief of Defence Staff, General Bipin Rawat, and 12 others died in the crash on a steep hillside in Coonoor in Tamil Nadu. General Rawat was on his way to address faculty and student officers of the Staff College in Wellington. The crash, described as a tragic accident by the Air Force, happened around noon. The sole survivors, Group Captain Varun Singh, he's still being treated for severe burns at the military hospital in Wellington. At 9 a.m., General Bipin Rawat and 13 others left Delhi on board a special aircraft. At 11:35, General Bipin Rawat reached the Sulu Air Base at Coimbatore for a short helicopter flight to Wellington. At 11:45 a.m., the Chief of Defence Staff left from Coimbatore for the Defence Services Staff College in Wellington on board an Mi-17 V5 helicopter with 14 people, including crew on board. At noon, the Indian Air Force Mi-17 V5 helicopter crashes near Coonoor, Tamil Nadu, 14 kilometers from Wellington. Authorities will be conducting an inquiry, but many experts are surprised by the crash. The helicopter, a Russian-designed Mi-17 V5, was a recent variant and seen as reliable.
It's a wonderful helicopter. I've flown thousands of hours on this helicopter in the most challenging terrain of this country, from the Siachen Glacier to everywhere else. And as far as the helicopter is concerned, it's one of the finest for our requirements in the country.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh visited General Rawat's residence in Delhi after briefing the Prime Minister. The Rawats have 2 daughters. Later at 6 p.m, the Indian Air Force confirmed in a tweet that General Bipin Rawat, his wife Mrs. Madhulika Rawat, and 11 others have died in the crash. In the evening, the Prime Minister chaired a top-level security meeting with the top 4 ministers as well as the National Security Advisor. The remains of the General, his wife and others will be brought to the national capital tomorrow. NDTV Bureau Report.
Well, joining us now, NDTV Sam Daniel and Arvind Gunasekara, who've both been tracking the story. Let me come to you first. Sam, do we have any update on the condition of the group captain who's fighting for his life? Where is he fighting for his life?
Well, Vishnu, he is being treated at the Defence Hospital at Wellington and Coonoor, and we understand from district authorities that the best possible treatment is being given. An officer in Tamil Nadu has also said that facility and a team of doctors are ready in a government hospital in Coimbatore as well, just in case if the defence establishment decides to shift him. As we speak now, Chief Minister M.K. Stalin is on his way from Coimbatore to Coonoor, and modalities are also being worked out in association with the authorities locally to shift all the mortal remains after the due medical and forensic formalities are over. This could happen tomorrow after a fitting tribute, possibly together by Defence Minister and the Chief Minister in Tamil Nadu here. And of course, the search for crucial evidence from the wreckage and in the areas around will continue tomorrow morning as well. And all will be hoping and praying that the lone survivor, Group Captain Varun Singh, will pull through. Vishnu.
All right, Arvind, what takes place tomorrow? There was a cabinet committee on security meet which is taking place. Do we expect the defence minister to address Parliament tomorrow on just what went wrong?
Yeah, Vishnu, the Cabinet Committee on Security that convened at the residence of Prime Minister somewhere around 6:30 p.m. and it went on for almost 1 hour. And condolence message has been passed on the loss of 13 lives in this tragic incident. And what we are being told is that tomorrow the Defence Minister will make a statement in both the houses of the Parliament detailing this particular crash, that tragic event that happened in Coonoor with the Indian Air Force helicopter. So what we are also being told is that tomorrow morning the mortal remains will be taken from Kunnur to Coimbatore, post which those mortal remains will be flown to Delhi. So that's what we are getting to her. But before flying to Tamil Nadu to Coimbatore to take the mortal remains from Coimbatore to Delhi, the Defence Minister will be briefing the Parliament, because Parliament is in session, and as per the procedure, the Defence Minister has to brief the Parliament on this tragic incident. So tomorrow in the first half itself, we can expect the Defence Minister to brief both the houses of the Parliament regarding this tragic incident, where we have lost almost 13 defence personnel, including the family member of CDS Bipin Rawat.
All right, thank you, Arvind and Sam, very much for being with us. The Indian Army has released a statement in just the last little while. They say General Bipin Rawat, India's first Chief of Defence Staff, was a visionary who initiated far-reaching reforms in the Indian military's higher defence organisation. He created the foundation of India's joint theatre commands and giving impetus to the increased indigenization of military equipment, a legacy which will be carried on and strengthened by successive generations. Well, General Bipin Rawat was India's first Chief Defence Staff. He was given the awesome responsibility of finding a way to look at the future of the Indian Armed Forces, break the silos which exist between the Air Force, Army and the Navy, to introduce the concept of theaterization and to ensure that the silos which these armed forces operated in were destroyed in a sense, so that India could start using its armed forces as one cohesive unit.
63-year-old General Bipin Rawat led the Indian Army and then the military as India's first Tri-Services Chief for the last 5 years. A very challenging period which saw fatal clashes with Pakistani and Chinese troops and many other crises. He took over as Army Chief in December 2016 after superseding 2 seniors. He was selected for his experience in cross-border strikes. In 2015, following the killing of 18 Indian soldiers in an ambush by Naga rebels, the Indian forces responded with cross-border strikes, and the responsibility of coordination was on Lieutenant General Rawat. General Rawat took over as Army Chief in the aftermath of the strikes across the line of control in September 2016, conducted by India after Pakistani-based groups attacked an army camp in Uri. Earlier that year, terrorists had attacked the Air Force base in Pathankot.
I said the surgical strikes were a message that we had communicated, and that if required and if the adversary does not behave, then if we have to continue with these kind of activities and events, we will continue.
In his tenure after the horrific Pulwama bomb attack in which 40 CRPF personnel were killed, India carried out second cross-border attack against a terror camp in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. An escalation which led to a counter-attack by Pakistan's Air Force, which was repelled by India. Later that year, on his retirement, General Rawat was appointed as India's first Chief of Defence Staff. But already the tension with China was building up on several fronts. In Arunachal Pradesh, with repeated face-offs. In Doklam, in Bhutan across the Sikkim border, where the Chinese built a base. And most crucially, in many areas in Ladakh. Along the line of actual control, repeated confrontations flared up with the Galwan clash, in which a colonel was among 20 Indian soldiers and several Chinese reportedly. This was the first fatal clash with China since the 1962 war. General Rawat's biggest strategic challenge was the possibility of war with India's nuclear-armed neighbours. Key to this was updating India's arsenal both with indigenous and foreign weapons, including more and more from the US.
Constant friction with 2 of our nuclear-armed neighbours, with whom India has fought wars, increasingly acting in collision, poses an omnipresent danger of regional strategic instability with the potential for escalation, threatening our territorial integrity and strategic cohesion.
During his term, the government also pushed for making roads, bridges, homes in border areas. Internally, not one to shy away from controversy, General Rawat cut through red tape and honoured Major Litul Gogoi for tying up a Kashmiri stone pelter to his vehicle as a human shield to evacuate polling staff. The Major was awarded the Chief of Army Staff Commendation Card. During the movement against the controversial Citizenship Amendment Act, across the country he publicly condemned those who were leading the protests and said, Leadership wasn't about guiding people to carry out arson and violence.
Leaders are not those who lead people in inappropriate directions, as we are witnessing in a large number of university and college students, the way they are leading masses of crowds to carry out arson and violence.
General Rawat's tenure has also seen a landmark change, with doors opening for regular commission of women in several sectors.
Well, the training of the women soldiers in the Indian Army in particular has been hard, and it has helped them in good stead in performing their tasks in various types of terrain that we have in our country. The distinction between the role of men and women today in war fighting is getting blurred by the day. The notion of gender gap is passé. Women are no less suited to braving such challenging conditions and have proven themselves in the past and will continue to do so in the future.
As the Chief of the Tri-Services, General Rawat had begun to plan for a better coordination between the three forces, especially in long-term procurement. He had a year of service left.
Already a huge loss over there for the country. The process would now at some stage need to start very closely at looking for a new Chief of Defence Staff. The Chief of Defence Staff in our system occupies a very important role. In addition to trying to integrate the three services, the Chief of Defence Staff is also a key player as far as the Nuclear Command Authority of India is concerned, a key player in how India's strategic deterrent is maintained, and therefore institutionally there would need to be a way to ensure that a new Chief of Defence Staff comes to occupy that post sooner than later. A new lineage of the Omicron variant has reportedly been found in several samples in Australia's Queensland. Reports claim that the new lineage of COVID is different and difficult to detect in a typical screening. Rishika Borwa has the story.
Well, let's get you the latest on Omicron. Scientists in the CSIR Institute of Genomics and Integrative Biology have now confirmed that Omicron indeed has split into two lineages. What does this mean? And what do we know about the new lineage? Well, so far, indications are that this makes Omicron harder to detect. Here's what we know so far. Omicron, or the B11529 lineage, is now split into BA1 and BA2. For BA2, RT-PCR shortcut to find a possible Omicron case cannot be used because there is no S gene dropout, as was the case with the original lineage. Now, BA1, which is the original lineage, BA2 is the new lineage, which has 24 mutations. Scientists say that this essentially is a categorization that has been done for a better epidemiological surveillance and understanding, and is not a cause of concern, at least not right now. The RT-PCR test, therefore, will still be able to detect a COVID positive case with the new Omicron BA2 lineage. However, you will need genomic surveillance in order to confirm the BA2 lineage.
There was a show of strength by opposition parties in Parliament as leaders and MPs from the Congress, the Trinamool and the NCP saw a massive political row explode over the Prime Minister's Lal Topi tweet, quoting the Prime Minister's attack against Akhilesh Yadav as the opposition hit out at it. Akhilesh Yadav says red symbolizes revolution.
A show of strength of opposition parties. Leaders and MPs from the Congress, TMC and NCP joined the ongoing dharna in Parliament in protest against the suspension of 12 of their colleagues in the Rajya Sabha. This a day after Shiv Sena's Sanjay Raut met Rahul Gandhi to push for a united anti-BJP opposition.
आज फिर हमने वही मुद्दा उठाया और हम उनको ये कहा कि ठीक नहीं है, कृपा करके आप सस्पेंशन को रिवोक करो। फिर एक बार मैं अपील करता हूं, हम सदन चलाने को तैयार है कि आज हम सभी पार्टी के लोग हाउस बाइकआउट करके.
The opposition also seemed galvanized after the PMO's official handle tweeted out the Prime Minister's stinging Lal Topi comments aimed at the Samajwadi Party, alleging that the SP was soft on terrorists. MPs from Samajwadi Party, including Akhilesh Yadav, wore red caps to Parliament today.
ये नई भाषा नहीं है। लाल टोपी के बारे में या लाल रंग के बारे में उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री जी पहले भी बोल चुके हैं, ये लाल रंग इमोशंस का है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी इमोशन नहीं समझती। लाल रंग क्रांति का भी है, लाल रंग बदलाव का भी है।
Earlier in the day, while addressing Congress MPs, Congress President Sonia Gandhi attacked the BJP-led government, calling it insensitive to the sufferings of the people.
तो एक तो पॉलिटिकल स्टेटमेंट है, पीएमओ के ऑफिशियल हैंडल से इसको करना उचित नहीं है।
Though the opposition parties came together to protest against the suspension of their MPs, the government stood unaffected in its business as the differences between Congress and TMC outshadowed the show once again. With camera person Prem Singh, this is Arvind Gunasekar for NDTV.
Farmers who spent the last 15 months protesting the farm laws and pushing for a legal guarantee for minimum support pay are on the brink of scaling down their agitation after accepting a second draft proposal from the government, which includes assurances on MSP, minimum support pay, and the withdrawal of police cases. The farm leader, Gurnam Singh Charuni, said, "We have accepted the revised draft given by the centre over our demands. We will hold a meeting again tomorrow as soon as we receive a formal letter from the centre. Tomorrow's meeting will be at 12 in the afternoon, when a final decision on reducing the intensity of the protests, which could include the thousands of farmers camped out around Delhi going back home, will be taken."
कल सरकार से जो ड्राफ्ट आया था उसके बारे में हमारी चिंता थी कि अभी तो सरकार कह रही है पहले आंदोलन खत्म करो फिर हम मुकदमे वापस लेंगे, ये तो सशर्त था। चिंता ये थी कि सिर्फ 2 राज्यों का जिक्र था, चिंता ये थी कि सरकार की विभागों का तो जिक्र है, एजेंसियों और समर्थकों के खिलाफ जो मुकदमे हैं उसका क्या होगा। मैं विस्तार में जाए बिना कह सकता हूं कि सरकार के आज के प्रस्ताव में इन सब बिंदुओं को एड्रेस किया गया है।
The activist Sudha Bhardwaj, who's been in jail since August 2018, can finally come out of prison as the trial court finalized her bail conditions today. Sudha Bhardwaj was booked controversially under terror charges and arrested in connection with the Elgar Parishad case, which was registered after the violence in Bhima Koregaon near Pune in 2018. There's been widespread condemnation over her arrest and continued incarceration.
As Sudha Bhardwaj finally walks out of jail on Thursday, other activists booked in the Elgar Parishad case in connection with the Bhima Koregaon violence are still languishing in jail. In fact, one of the accused, Father Stan Swami, an octogenarian Jesuit priest, died in custody as he was denied bail.
Sudha Bhardwaj will have to spend one more night in prison. She will walk out of jail after 3 years and 104 days. The release orders reached Baikala prison after the deadline to complete release formalities today. However, her friends and family are relieved.
ऐसे व्यक्ति के लिए जो कि आदिवासी मजदूरों के बीच में रहकर और उनके कानूनी लड़ाइयाँ, हक की लड़ाइयाँ और जो डेमोक्रेटिक मूवमेंट है उसका हिस्सा रही, उनके 3 साल आपने जेल में बंद करे। साथ ही हमें दुख है कि जो बाकी लोग आरोपी हैं इस कांड में, उन लोगों को एक तकनीकी कारण से बेल नहीं दी गई, तो हम ये भी चाहते हैं कि वो जल्दी निकलें।
The trial court has set very strict conditions for her bail. While she is out on bail, there are several restrictions on her movement. She cannot leave Mumbai and she cannot speak to the media about the case. She has to surrender her passport and attend court on all trial days. While Sudha Bhardwaj has been granted default bail by the Bombay High Court, as it found that the additional Sessions Court in Pune, which extended the time for investigation in the case beyond 90 days, was not competent to do so, as it was not notified as a special anti-terror court or a NIA court. The High Court had ordered that she be produced before the trial court today and bail conditions be fixed, which allow her to leave prison on a cash bail and produce sureties and execute a bond in a month.
Several questions have been raised over the evidence that has been presented in this case, including the allegation that the electronic evidence may have been planted on the computer of one of the co-accused in the case. The larger question, of course, is the continued incarceration of activists on terror charges and the imposition of the draconian Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. In Mumbai with Sunil Singh and camera person Praveen G. Rohit, Saurabh Gupta, NDTV.
A huge change, a huge shift for Indian cricket, with Rohit Sharma set to take over as India's new one-day international captain, replacing Virat Kohli. Rohit Sharma will captain India in now the T20 format, also the one-day international format. He will now also be vice-captain of the Test team. Virat Kohli continues to be captain of India's Test team. An 18-member Test squad has been announced for the tour of South Africa. Rohit, Rahul, Pant, Shami, Bumrah and Shardul are back in the team. Rahane, Pujara, Ishant, despite their poor form, have been included. Jadeja, Shubman Gill are injured. Akshar Patel also has a stress fracture, so they're out. Jadeja has a ligament tear. He could be out for a few months, so that's really bad news for Team India. The team will leave for South Africa on the 16th of this month.